This rich man was sitting in his car, breathing hard and foaming at the mouth. The black guy was arguing with the traffic police outside the car. The reason is that they were stopped on the road. The traffic officers were at a loss as to what to do. They finally let the car go. When the young man got into the car, they wiped the vomit out of the corner of his mouth. He was miraculously well again. It turns out he was faking it. He was a rich man who was paralyzed. This black boy was his servant. How did they meet and become acquainted? The story begins. The rich man was looking for a servant for himself. Everyone who applied had a briefcase with them. The rich man's assistant asked them a question. Why did you choose this career? Some said for the money, others said for humanitarian reasons, others said they wanted to help people. Only the little black man was different. He walks in with a stride, handed them a document. He said straight away he had to be rejected 3 times for an interview before he could collect unemployment benefits. The rich man asked him if you don't have a goal in life. The young man said I have one right now. As he talked, he teased the rich man's beautiful assistant. The rich man smiled a rare smile. He told him to come back tomorrow. He actually lives in a very poor family. He has many siblings in his family. He even had to take a shower together, and he spent 6 months in jail. He had just been released from prison. His mother had gone on holiday, and he gave his mother the egg he'd just stolen from a rich man's house. He gave them to his mother as a present, but he was thrown out. He ended up wandering the night away. The next day he arrived at the rich man's house. The butler took him to his bedroom, with a luxurious bathtub of his own. Yes, he was hired. He was able to sleep while the nurses taught him to care. When he washed the rich man's hair, he would wash his hair with foot shampoo. Shampoo for his feet. The hardest thing for him was, he had to wear stockings to improve his blood circulation, and to help him pass his bowels by hand. He approached the housekeeper. He said he would never do such a thing. During the treatment, experimenting with boiling water on the rich man's legs, and while he was feeding him, got caught up in the beauty, feeding food to the rich man's eyes. The housekeeper also found a throwing stick in his bag. This rich man was ready to go out, but the maid wouldn't put him in the back of the car like cargo. Instead, he had his eye on a supercar on the side. The little man said to him, I want you to sit in it. It's definitely not my intention to drive. But as soon as he left the house, a neighbor stopped the car at the door. He gave him a civilized and polite lecture. Please don't stop. I can't hear you. Don't stop. That's more like it. Then he took the rich man to a painting exhibition. The rich man looked at a puddle of nosebleeds for a long time. He finally bought it for 40,000 euros. The young man said nothing about it. In the end, he teased the rich man about not being able to move. The rich man's relatives persuaded him to replace him, because people like them don't have any sympathy. But the rich man said, this is what I want. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. Late that night, Rich had trouble breathing because of the side effects of his medication. He was having trouble breathing. The young man found out and rushed over. He took care of him. He ended up staying by Rich's side all night. At 4 a.m., he had another attack. He was pushed through the streets of Paris. They walked and talked. They even lit up their cigarettes. You take a sip and I take a sip. They end up having breakfast at a restaurant. The rich man says he likes extreme sports, and it was during a gliding accident. He had a paraplegic accident. His wife lost her life. He also learns that the egg was left to him by his wife. It meant a lot to him. The next day he asked his sister to go to the house to find the egg. He also brought his brother out of the police station, but the next day, his brother was in someone else's car. Back at Rich's house, Rich was writing a letter to his pen pal. They had been seeing each other in this way, and it went on for 6 months. Finally, the little brother couldn't stand it any longer. Despite the rich man's objections, he called him on the phone. The rich man said no, but his body was honest. The two of them had a great conversation on the phone. Finally, they decided to swap photos, but Rich couldn't get past. He couldn't get over the fact that he was in a wheelchair. The young man encouraged him to be brave. He even helped him choose a picture of himself in a wheelchair. But afterwards, he asked the butler to secretly replace it with the previous photo. He became more and more skilled at caring for him. In his free time, he improvised a painting. When the beautiful assistant came to see the painting, he tried to take advantage of her, but he was beaten to death. In the end, the painting was sold by a rich man, sold it for 10,000 euros. The boy also turned the rich man's turtle wheelchair into a land rocket that could carry people. He also called a mechanic for him and gave him a proper service. He even turned the rich man's birthday party into a laughter-filled cabaret. In this otherwise serious villa, a lot of different colors were added. The rich man received a letter and photo back from his pen pal, and we met up to meet. The young man accompanied the rich man to choose his clothes, but in the end, the rich man had to back out. Just after leaving the house, he and his pen pal passed each other. After that, they went on a trip and went hang gliding together. He said that people who do this are crazy. I don't want to do it. In the end, it's the law of incense. Oh my god. But that day, my brother's brother, he found him for refuge. He had to arrange for him to stay here for the night, and called his mother from the window to tell them he was safe. Afterwards, he told the rich man about his family, and the rich man felt he should take care of his family first, so he had no choice but to dismiss him. The next day he took his brother and left the villa. The rich man watched quietly from inside the house. On his way out he saw another man pull up at the door. This time he patiently went up to him and explained to him, and the little brother found the picture of the rich man hidden in his CV. When he returned, He helped his brother with everything, and with the knowledge he had gained from the rich man, he found a new job. The rich man also hired a new maid. Look at his beard. I could tell he was having a bad time. The maids are very respectful of him. They didn't understand the rich man's feelings at all. A male technician was called to give him a massage. This made the rich man even more irritable. One day the rich man's old problem came back. The butler had no choice but to call the boy. He greeted him through the window. He has a grudge against the beard. Then he took the rich man out for a walk, and there was the scene at the beginning where they were surrounded by the police. This time they drove a long way. Finally they arrived at the beach. The rich man smiled for the first time in a long time when the boy was shaving his beard. He even teased him. First he shaved him like an uncle, then he gave him a British aristocratic beard. Finally, he gave him a kiss. After finishing up, he took him to a restaurant. Tell him I won't stay for dinner. I've got a date for you. He gave him back the egg and left. At that moment, rich pen pal appeared. The rich man's face showed his delight. The little brother was also happy for him from outside the window. This extremely tender film, it is actually based on a true story. In reality, the two men have both started their own families and have always maintained a close friendship. The sympathy and compassion shown in the face of another's misfortune can be another form of invisible hurt.